Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. This video is happening very quickly on the heels of the last one. As I mentioned in my last video, it's the silly season once again. It is Black Friday, Cyber Monday coming up. But I think there are just two deals right now that tower over the rest. Last time I talked about Panasonic's Lumix G9, but now I want to talk about Fujifilm's X-H1 priced at a ridiculous $998 with battery grip. Now, between the two, this and the G9, I definitely give the nod to the G9 if you are a hybrid shooter and your primary focus is video. But interestingly enough, even though it was pitched as Fujifilm's flagship hybrid with the best video capabilities in the lineup when it was announced back in February 2018, I might give the nod to the X-H1 as a photographer's camera. Maybe. In any case, I think this is the sweet spot as the gateway to Fujifilm's excellent lens lineup. And the reason for that, beyond the price, is 1, IBIS, 2, IBIS, 3, IBIS. Look, that's not the only reason. It's within spitting distance of an X-T30, just $200 more, but it has superior build, superior feel in hand, superior shutter, dual card slots, a much better 3.7 million dot, higher magnification EVF, top plate sub-LCD panel, more robust lens mount, a 2-battery battery grip, and it has IBIS. Yeah. This camera remains the only camera in Fujifilm's APS-C lineup that has IBIS, and even for still photography, once you experience good IBIS, especially when your lenses don't have internal image stabilization, like the excellent weather-sealed 16-55 2.8 on the camera right now, it's hard to go back. Do the $1,300 X-T3 and $800 X-T30, which share a newer sensor, have superior autofocus? Well, yeah, they do. But is the X-H1's AF and burst rate, say, sufficient for a credentialed motorsports pro photographer? Absolutely. Just ask my friend Steven. And in spite of the fact that I loved the X-T2, I always say it in threes, it is the camera that brought me back to photography with a bang. And by the way, I'll put links to all of our Fujifilm camera videos, X-T2, 3, X-Pro 2, 3, X-T30, and X-H1 down in the show notes below. To my utter astonishment, I found I liked the X-H1 in hand even more. And the lenses are great. If I were to pick only two, they'd be the $900 16mm 1.4 and identically priced 56 1.2. I fell in love with both of these lenses because of their rendering, feel, build, small size, lightweight, reasonable pricing, and the fact that the 16, oh my God, has a manual focus clutch with hard stops. Now, if you're worried about shallow depth of field, my advice is don't be, unless you regularly shoot at gnat's eyelash length depth of field. Even a 2.0 on an 85 or 90 full frame will often be too shallow for, say, headshot or upper torso shooting. Then again, at longer distances to the subject, shooting wide open with longer lenses can yield lovely subject isolation. I know, I accept it. Let's move on. The red badge zooms, the $1,000 16 to 55, the $1,400 50 to 140, and the $1,700 100 to 400 4.5 to 5.6, the other two are 2.8s, all offer outstanding optical performance, build quality, weather sealing, and compact dimensions at what I consider to be reasonable prices. And what some of us refer to as the Fujicrons here on the $1,800 X Pro 3, they're super compact, weather resistant, street photography focal length f2 primes, 450 for the 23, 400 for the 35, and 450 for the 50 millimeter, are an absolutely lovely way to enter photography seriously as you're just starting out, or you're shooting street and you don't care. Fujifilm does offer 1.4 versions of the 23 and 35, full frame equivalents of 35 and 50 at 800 and 600 respectively, but they are not weather resistant and not clearly optically superior. Now, weaknesses on the X-H1. You can argue the X-H1 is big for a crop sensor camera. I understand. But I say, just take off the battery grip, sell it, buy a couple of batteries, and just keep them in your pocket. You may be surprised by how petite the X-H1 feels and weighs at that point, which then again may be a reason to keep the grip. It adds some purchase, although there's room for your pinky finger even without it, unlike the X-T30 or the X-T3, but also adds a vertical shutter, the headphone jack they refuse to put into the main body on the X-H1, and longer run time for video, though the recording limit is still in place. Oh well, if video is your primary jam, I say, again, look at the G9 or the X-T3, which manages to have both a 3.5mm jack for headphone and mic and 10-bit internal recording that the X-H1 does not. Like the G9, though the G9 has IBIS too. What else? You can argue some of the secondary controls on the X-H1 are fiddly. Agreed. It's true of all their APS-C cameras. Maybe you don't like the fact that the X-H1's rear panel is a tilty rather than flippy screen like the G9. I understand this too. Still, most photographers actually prefer tilty, and when I'm shooting street, I've now reached the same conclusion. It's actually faster to just flip it up. Like the X-T3, at least you can tilt it 45 degrees, so you can shoot unobtrusively waist level when holding the camera in portrait mode. But unlike the new X Pro 3, $1,800, with its bottom-hinged rear panel, the X1H's EVF blocks a good chunk of the view. Not quite as bad as the X-T3, and in either case, manageable. But it is a difference. What about autofocus compared to Sony? Well, the X-H1 is not as good as the Sony a7 III, which by the way is now, and this is the first time I've ever seen it this low, $1,800. If you're a workaday pro shooting sports, wildlife, or weddings, I said this last time, and are not satisfied with any other AF system, really the only question is, can I get away with the a7 III, or do I need to go to the A9 or maybe the A9 II? To which I'd reply, if budget is a concern, spend the difference on the glass, which is exactly the same advice I'd give about most cameras and why I'm so excited about $998 for this X-H1, though, yes, do as I say, not as I always do. But as soon as you move beyond autofocus and take into account other things, I made this point in the last video as well, the differences in color science, high ISO noise, and dynamic range at the sensor level across formats, at least from medium format down to micro four thirds, once equalized for depth of field, which you should do, and sharpness, micro contrast, and color correction at the lens level across the industry have so narrowed that, again, for 99% of us, 99% of the time, especially now that the majority of us consume photography and video on mobile devices, are so small that the basis for selecting one's gear has undergone a profound shift. These days, which is really to say at no point since the introduction of mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras, has gear selection been more about accessible functionality, size, weight, handling, price, and joy. Which, with all of this said, makes the X-H1 at $998 with battery grip, a deal among deals. Is an X-H2 imminent? I don't know, but the rumor mills say no. Is an X-T4 with IBIS imminent? I suspect no, but I have no inside information. I think the question you have to ask yourself is, would it really matter in any case? It might to you, but not at this price. And that is that. For Three Blind Men and an Elf, and I'm Hugh Brownstone. See you next time.